Hello and welcome to the Cold Coffee Club, a podcast brought to you by Houston Moms. We're here to give you a little bit of that mom-to-mom connection, fun, and conversation amidst all the chaos. Join us as we take a break from doing all the things and explore the wide spectrum of this crazy motherhood role. We'll interview fun guests, talk about cool grown-up topics, laugh, share, and grow together. So go ahead, reheat that coffee and put your feet up. Here we go.
Welcome back to the Cold Coffee Club. My name's Ashley and I'm project coordinator with Houston Moms. And here is my co-host.
Hi, it's Jenny. I'm social media director with Houston Moms. And we have a fun episode today. We have a special guest. We always love when we have interviews. And today we have a very special interview, which is that Houston Moms is bringing on a Houston dad.
Yeah.
But not any Houston dad, a TV star. We are bringing on KPRC Channel 2 meteorologist Justin Stapleton, who is going to talk to us about hurricane preparedness and hurricane season, because guess where we are right now? Hurricane season.
We are in the thick of it.
We're right in the middle of it, actually. And I don't know when you're listening to this, but as this was being recorded, Justin so graciously took time out of his very busy schedule, because we were right in the middle of just a really wet, stormy weekend. That he was watching like on the TV as we were talking and like paying attention. So we are so thankful that he took time out of his schedule to talk to us and about not only how to get your kids prepared for hurricane season, but just if you're new to Houston and you're not quite so sure about kind of when to worry and when you should kind of pay attention and how to prepare. This is a really great conversation. So it was a great conversation. Thank you, Justin. Go ahead and roll it, Ashley.
Alrighty.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Justin, thanks so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about kind of how long you've lived in Houston, kind of what your position is at KPRC. And I know we're Houston moms, but you're a Houston dad. So we want to hear a little bit too about, how many kiddos you have.
Sure. So let's see. We've been here in Houston since January of 2015. Okay. That moved from Eugene, Oregon to here, and been here ever since, working for KPRC too. And it's been great. It's really been quite an interesting journey. When I came down here for the interview way back when, I'd never even been to Texas before, so I didn't really know what to expect. So I'd heard about what, I knew about a little bit about Dallas and the history of San Antonio and Austin, but I didn't really know much about Houston at all, with the exception of there's a lot of oil refineries down here and NASA, and that's it. And so I thought at first that when I got down here, I'd see something, a lot of cowboys and steers and all this stuff. And I get down, it's sort of a big international, culturally diverse city that just is stuck on the Gulf Coast, and so, I like that part, that it's this massive city where you can literally get into any country, anywhere you want in the city and the surrounding areas as well. But we fly so far under the radar nationally that people think they're, all the time. We get so tired in the TV business when people will be like, Houston, we don't have a problem. I've never heard that 1,000 times.
They think they came up with something.
What was it for the soccer, when we got the host city for the World Cup in 2020, 2026?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like, we don't have a problem. And all of us video at the same time are all like, no, whatever.
Great job, everybody. Yeah.
But it's a great city. I really like it a lot. My girlfriend Brandy and I, we've been here, we're over on the east side of downtown. So we've really seen a lot of it grow and develop. Really exciting to, kind of see all that. So, but yeah, we're here, and we've got 4 teenage kids between us. So we've got 4 girls, 14, 15, 16, and 16.
Ooh. Okay.
So that's why my hair is the color it is here.
It's a lot. It's a lot going on.
It is, but it's fun. I like having teenagers now, because yes, there is drama every single day. but I feel like, you know, they're growing and turning into adults at this point, and our conversations are changing, and it's really fun. It's just really neat to see their personalities just sort of, you know, as they get older. So
that's great.
That
yeah.
awesome.
And just kind of seeing as they kind of, you can already tell like what kind of person they're becoming. I love that. But
they're all 4 different too. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
You know, we had, what was it? It was last New Year's Eve when we were all here. They played a game where they all switched roles basically. So like, you know, started to dress up as Brandy's youngest, and they changed everything, and they came down, and we were all like, okay, this is something, you know. And my youngest she was like, I like this look with the black lipstick and whatnot. Hey, go tell your mother that. We'll see how that works out.
so cute.
But it's fun. It's just really fun. You know, they've all known each other for 12 years now, so they basically have grown up together. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So cute.
Yeah.
So as a meteorologist coming from Oregon to Houston, I'm sure is a big shift. Yeah. So for new Houstonians, can you explain to us what is hurricane season and what can we expect?
Sure. Yeah. So for new folks, hurricane season is basically the season where you will alternatively get really stressed out, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, no big deal. And then get stressed out again, and then go the weekend, right? That's sort of the synopsis of it. But no, in technical terms, hurricane season is the season where the tropical Atlantic starts to get brewing, so to speak. And that starts on June 1st and goes until November 30th. And so for us, the main crux of when we really pay attention, to hurricane season is in 2 spots. It's in June, like it is now, because what we will generally see are what we call these little homegrown systems, similar to what is out there this weekend kind of brewing. So they may be the tail end of cold fronts. They may be just little weaknesses in the atmosphere that can kind of spin up, because if you remember, the Gulf of Mexico is always warm, right? The water temperature generally doesn't fall below 80, 82 degrees. And that's enough to kind of trigger some tropical development. When we get into June, July, and August, that temperature gets closer to 88 to 90 degrees. So basically just gas at this point, right? What I always like to say is that we live right here in the greater Houston area. We live above the world's biggest bathtub, right? It never gets cool. So it's an ample supply of moisture that can always be used whenever we need it. So that's why it's something that you kind of have to watch. So, you know, when you're making travel plans, or if you're making vacation plans in particular to the coast, or even to anywhere, New Orleans, or if you're going out to Florida with the family, anytime from mid-June probably to the end of August, you really just have to be very careful, because that's when tropical storms, tropical depressions, tropical storms, and hurricanes can really get cranking. Yeah.
I know that some of us I've lived here my whole life. And so some of us, like, it's kind of it's become the norm to us. But I also know that over the years, people have different levels of hurricane preparedness and what they do. I mean, some people really stock up and they'll go, you know, over buy toilet paper, or and then some people, you know, we're going to track every single second of it and get panicky about things. But then there's also people that under prepare and they're not going to do anything, and we're just going to stick it out. So kind of like, I know we could probably talk about that for an hour, but what are some of your kind of do's and don'ts for hurricane preparedness? What do you think we should have on hand, or what do you think is kind of overdoing it?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think it's always good to just sort of think of the basic essentials that you may need are non-perishables. You know, water, if you happen to lose power, you know, things that can be prepared for the kids that don't necessarily need to be refrigerated. You know, PB&J sandwiches were my kids go to for a billion years, right? Or my oldest still basically eats an entire box of goldfish, you know, for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So things like that, if you're at Costco, or if you're at Sam's Club or Walmart or wherever it is that you shop, if they've got like the big bulky ones there and you've got the space for it in your pantry, go ahead and grab a couple of those in like April, May, whatnot, you know, just kind of things like that. Another thing that's really good too is extra pet food. A lot of times they don't think about the pets, you know, so if you're at Petco or PetSmart or whatnot, Especially if you have a pet that has special dietary needs, like mine, my little loaf of bread that's literally sitting under a blanket next to me here on the couch, has a very sensitive stomach. And so it's a little bag, right? Well, they go through those pretty quickly. So maybe grab a couple of those. So that's probably a good thing you can do early. And those are things you put it away, you set it, forget it, you don't have to worry about it, right? When you get closer to when we may have a storm coming in, two really big things are important to remember. One is medication. A lot of times people will forget that too, right? So if you've got a 30-day supply for insulin, for hypertension, whatever it is, right? That's really important to maybe go to your doctor and say, hey, can I get a 45 on this here? Just in case things are closed the next week and you need that, right? If you take lithium levels where they have to keep a certain level in your body, it's really important to make sure that that's up there. So medication's one. A second thing is to have a way to get power if you run out of power for your cell service. There's a lot of companies on Amazon that Amazon sells that have these little packs. They're either battery function or they're solar too, where you can kind of, store that energy. And then if the power goes out, if you don't have a generator, and that's one, I'll talk about that in a second. That's a great and easy way for everybody to just plug their phones up so that you can, kind of keep going on what's going on with the latest watches and warnings, anything from me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, but it's a way to kind of keep connected with your neighbors and whatnot and see who needs help. A lot of times that's what really panic people is when they lose power and you're like, well, how long is it going to be out? And CenterPoint doesn't have an idea. And next thing you know, you're like, I've got 2% left and I need to get a hold of X, Y, and Z. So generators, I think that's one of those that's maybe a little overplayed, and I'll probably catch some slack for that. But the problem with generators are, especially the small ones that are gas or diesel powered, is that you have to mix them with the right amount of gas and oil, and they can be really dangerous at times because people will put them inside the house because it's raining outside. You can't start a generator if it's soaking wet. And then we've had problems with people, perishing or getting really, really sick with the carbon monoxide poisoning. If you have the money and the time to install one of those outside big generators, go for it. That's not something you can do 3 days before a storm is going to hit, though. That has to be done months in advance. Some of those can get really pricey. I've seen them from anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000. So, I don't know about y'all, but I don't have 15 grand.
Not right now. Not right now.
That's right. Next week, the check clears. We're good. So. But yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that the more you can kind of prep the easy stuff early and then set it and forget it, the less you're going to be in a mad dash going to HEB with, 10,000 people.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And we've all done it. We've all done it. So.
I hadn't even thought of dog food. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. I feel so bad.
Yeah, we partner with the Houston Humane Society down in Alameda, on 288 by NRG. And they always get a message from them when we get these systems coming in, and they're like, please, 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 please tell people, get dog food, get kitty litter, anything, something that you will need if you can't get out of your house. Remember during Harvey, the crazy thing about Harvey is that none of us, but most people didn't lose power. We just couldn't go anywhere.
We just were trapped. Yeah.
So everyone was having hurricane parties around because I kept getting pictures on Facebook of people and they were like, woo, watching you. And I was like, I slept in 3 days, but everybody was safe. We were all just trapped in our houses, right? Or neighborhoods had one house that was dry. And so they had like 4 families in there and it was just like sleepover for 4 days. But that's a perfect example where it's like, if you're in there and you can't get out of your house for 4 or 5 days, you may be running low on stuff. So it's just nice to have all that ahead of time. And then you don't think about it. Just like I said, if you got a pantry, or especially if you put it in the garage, if you can put it up so the mice and the little critters get in there and don't get to it, pallets of water and things like that will last for a year.
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So I am not from Houston. I grew up in Colorado, and so we worry about different things there. And so when I moved here, I really thought everyone was just being dramatic when Harvey hit. I was like, it's a little rain, calm down, we're fine. So when do you know when it's time to worry and when it's more than just, a rainstorm?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Harvey basically had us has most of the greater area now in some form of PTSD, because it was just one of those where it just wouldn't stop, right? Like and I remember looking at it, I want to say it was Saturday night, and just staring at the radar and just thinking like, please stop, right? Like just begging with it, please stop raining. And it just wouldn't. You know, I think that because we live above the world's biggest bathtub, as I mentioned, any potential for heavy rain can turn into trouble quickly. Most times it's very isolated, which for the person, unfortunately, that is stuck underneath that, it's a really bad day. But for everybody else, we're okay. I generally will not sound the alarm unless we feel that the amount of rain that's coming in is going to overwhelm the amount of rain mitigation systems that we have built across Southeast Texas here. And what I mean by that is the bayous, the creek systems we have, and most of the roads in particular. You know, West Park Tollway is elevated for a reason, so that all the water, when it starts to fill up, goes like that, right? Because otherwise you cut off a good chunk of the west side of town here. 99 has its trouble spots out near La Centera. There's a big dip, and that floods every time. And I know exactly where it is, because as soon as it starts to fill up, I'm like, and there we go, right? So I think that's one thing to do, is know where your trouble spots are around your neighborhood. If you've got storm drains, you know, if you live on a corner lot and you have a storm drain there, maybe go look at it and see, is it cluttered? Because it just can be like grass clippings, you know, you have lawn care, or if you're out mowing, and they get cluttered. And when they get cluttered, they can't take the water down into the drain system and then move it out. And then when they don't, that's when we run into issues. So I would always say, you know, pay attention to what your local weather folks are saying, especially at Channel 2. And when we start talking about things like rain rates, and what I mean by that is how much rain is falling per hour. Most times, most roads, creeks, rivers, bayous can handle up to about 2 inches per hour, okay? That doesn't sound like a lot. You say, well, it's 2 inches, no big deal, right? But if you think, if you get 2 inches in 1 hour and it takes time to drain that, and then within the next hour, you put another 2 inches on that, and you put another 2 on that, and another 2 on that, well, now you're talking eight inches, and it may take more than 6 hours for that to drain. And that's what happened with Harvey, is we just, the amount of rain that was falling from the sky was just too much, and it was overwhelming everything, right? The good news we have right now going into this hurricane season in particular is that we have been so hot and bone dry that we can take a pretty good walloping. Now, that doesn't mean that we can stare a hurricane, you know, with like an American flag and look at it, be like, come on, right? Because I don't want to do that. But I think we can take a pretty good amount of rain before we're going to run into some trouble. So that's the big issue is when we start talking about rain rates and we talk about things called flash flooding. Flash flooding is the dangerous one where it can cause rain and flooding to occur quickly and move. And that's where people get into problems, because they say, oh, well, that doesn't look that high. I can drive through that, right? Problem is you don't know how deep it is, because maybe there's a little dip there and you can't see it. And I see that all the time. You know, if you drive a low car like mine's probably about that far off the ground. It doesn't take 6 inches to either move that car sideways, in which case you have no control, or two, the bigger thing, which we always see around here, is people think, oh, I can get through that, and they blast into the water. It gets through the radiator, right? The little mesh on the front of your car, and it chokes out the engine. And then once you get a flooded engine, I'm not much of a car person, but I've seen enough of these. You flood an engine, you're dead. You're not going anywhere, right? And then you just have to wait.
Yeah.
And you're out of, you know, what, $40,000 car, or whatever it is that you paid for it. So
yeah, it's scary to see those people on the freeway or in, you know, in those underpasses just sitting there waiting for someone to come.
Yeah. So I get with that, Ashley, to answer your question, when we start talking about, you know, hey, we may see some heavy rain from one of these systems coming in, just sort of pay attention to the forecast. We'll update it as soon as we get new information. Our mantra at Channel 2 is, when we know something, you know something. I just tweeted and Facebooked out information this morning about the storm that's upcoming for the weekend. We just got it in an hour ago. And so it's brand new. So I want to make sure that whatever we know, you guys know. Sometimes people say, oh, you're trying to fear monger and scare people and whatnot. And no, that's not it at all. I'd rather have people have more information so they can make the best decision for themselves and their family about what their situation is versus not knowing about it. And then you run into trouble because you don't have time to prepare.
Right. So I want to ask too about our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I know just preparing them for, whenever a storm is coming, I already told my kids yesterday, hey, I think it might be a rainy weekend and, we really need the rain. And so we can prepare them for weather that's coming, but preparing them for a hurricane or even just preparing them for hurricane season.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips about that or resources we can point them to just as we either educate them if they maybe have an interest in it or preparing them for just kind of what might be sometimes for some kids might scare them a little or make them feel a little anxious?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the number one thing you need to think about with your children is whatever information you're going to share with them, either if it's something that they're going to go to look at or something that you're going to provide to them, make sure that it's age appropriate. What you share with your 15-year-old will be different than what you share with your 6-year-old. And these can be scary because they're very big storms and they've probably learned a little bit about it in class. What I like to do is I like to give kids information where they feel like they're in control of some of what they're learning here. I feel like knowledge is power. I think the old schoolhouse rock said knowledge is power. And I truly believe that because the more you know about something, the less spooky it is, right? Even if it is something that can really be bad, if it turns into that, you at least know and you can help prepare yourself mentally, psychologically, at whatever age that is. So I think it's really important to not sugarcoat things with your kids. I thought that was a great thing that you had just said there, Jenny, is to tell them, we need the rain this weekend. Yeah, that may stink because we can't go to the pool or wherever tomorrow, but we need this rain. And the cool thing is it won't be forever, right? It's just a day or it's just 2 days. We'll do something really cool on Sunday, right? So kind of giving them to say, hey, this is probably going to be a little rainy and kind of stormy maybe tomorrow, but then it'll be out of here. And you know what, Saturday, we'll go get gelato or something like that, right? So that's something that they can kind of, okay, I know that I've got to sort of get through this, let me get through there. In terms of resources, at clicktohouston.com, which is our website, we have a great hurricane page. It's called the Hurricane Headquarters. You can Google it. It's really easy to find. And it'll actually track storms that are out there. Whenever the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center will put some kind of an invest on a storm, which basically means a bullseye, so to speak. And when they start to track it, that opens up all kinds of things. They have these little spaghetti plots. You see those squiggly lines that we show sometimes on the air. Those are run. We have links to the hurricane hunters. Those are the Air Force folks and the Navy folks that fly into those things. They're super safe. But that's really important information that brings back to us what's happening in that storm. So I think for, older kids, teenagers and this and that, if they've got a real love of science and meteorology or atmosphere, or just how things work up in the sky with these storms. National Hurricane Center is a great resource. It's just nhc.gov. Really, it's federally funded, so it's taxpayer money, so it's all free to the public. None of it is secret stuff that you can't get a hold of. And they have really neat sections on there for being able to track it with your kids. They have resources about what does a tropical depression mean versus a tropical storm versus a hurricane, because they're all very different. So it's just it's a neat way to kind of educate what's happening with that as well. But yeah, I think age appropriateness is really important, especially for the little kids, because, abstractly, something like a hurricane is hard for a 5 or 6-year-old to comprehend. What does this mean? All they know is that it's raining outside and it's getting close to my front door and I don't know what's happening, right? So I think that the more you can help them be part of not only like prepping for it, but also what job can they have, when things are going on. That I think takes away some of the fear and anxiety, and it gives them a purpose like, hey, I'm helping my family out here because my job is to, you know, if the cat's still outside or whatnot, because we've got an outdoor cat that's out there all the time, you know, look out the window, is Trixie coming up or something like that, right? So giving them something so it can take their mind off of it. But also I really think it's important to give them as much age appropriate information as possible.
That's great.
So one thing I've been really curious about is, what is your most valuable hurricane season advice that you can give us?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is to don't panic. And the reason I say that is, as you say, Ashley, not being a Houston native, I'm not either. I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. So I'd watch these things on the TV and go, ooh, that looks bad, right? But living here, it's a whole different ballgame. I think the biggest thing is to understand you live in the Gulf Coast. These storms are a part of the annual season, right? That doesn't mean we're going to see one every single year, right? And in fact, aside from Harvey, I want to say, I'd have to look at my notes again, but it was only about 2 hurricanes we had seen since 2010 too. Now, the ones that we do see generally, you know, can be quite destructive. But it's part of, if you can understand and just know, I live in a zone where I get to golf in t-shirt and shorts in the wintertime, and I get to go out to the beach all year round. But that also comes with the fact that I have to watch these storms, and they may get a little anxious in the summertime. I feel like you're better prepared at that point. You know, the more people, not take too much out of it, that's not the right word, but the more you allow the storms to kind of get you to a heightened anxiety level when it may not necessarily need to be, you're really just going to cause a lot of extra stress for yourself at this point. You know, the big thing that we always like, myself and Frank always like to say is, you know, no need to worry about this yet. Let us do that for you, right? If you need to worry, we'll be like, okay, we need to prep now, right? And then go into, you know, mama bear mode and do what you got to do at that point and take care of it. So I think that's the biggest advice is that, you know, you live in a beautifully cultural diverse area, and enjoy it for what it is. And yes, every now and then we got to buckle down and hang on to these things as they come in.
Yeah, got to take the good with the bad.
That's right. That's part of it, you know, and it's, you know, I think the other part too is that I think it gives everybody that lives here a really good opportunity example to show kindness to others as well, because if we don't get hit, somebody else does. We know what that feels like, right? So I love seeing, you know, Southeast Texans here that will send supplies, baby formula, whatever it is, to Louisiana, to Florida, because they got wrecked. And we know what that's like. We know what it was like, and they came here and helped us. You know, so it's kind of this collective feeling of community down here on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenny, do we have anything else for Justin?
No, I think here I will ask one last question before we. This wasn't like, I don't think we prepared for this, but I was just thinking about it as you were talking. I feel like each year when they like release the names of like the storms at the beginning of the year, and I feel like every year they'll say like, we suspect that this will be a very active storm season. And I do think that's kind of like for the whole coast when they say that. But do y'all predict that Houston is going to have a pretty active storm season, just on kind of based on what you know? Are y'all expecting us to have, I mean, I know it's kind of hard between now and September or November to guess that, but
the overall ingredients that make up an active season are in place this summer. So no reason to believe that we won't. Now, does that mean that we see 1 or 2 storms and other people see 7 to 8? You know, who knows, right? We could see 10 tropical storms, and a tropical storm could be anything from tropical depression to a hurricane. We could see 10 of those, but you know, 9 of those go like into Florida and Louisiana, and we get 1 into South Texas. Well, then if you look at it that way, you'd go, oh, well, that was kind of a bust of a season for us. Well, not really. There were many other areas that got hit. It just wasn't us. It's difficult to really lock in on the specific zones of where those go. All that depends on what's out there as well. The crazy thing, and to me, the cool thing about hurricanes, the tropical systems are, they don't have any steering mechanisms to themselves, right? There's no steering wheel. They are at the behest of the larger synoptic things that are out there. What I mean by that is, the reason we were so hot over the last couple of weeks, right, when it was getting 100, 101, 98, 100, was because there was this massive area of high pressure. High pressure compresses, heats up, and dries the air. And it was literally just sitting right on top of Texas, right? Well, the good news with that is that can serve as a bit of a pinwheel, and storms that will come around that can get slingshot underneath us and into Mexico, like a few did earlier in June. Now, when that moves away, it allows for a bit of a road or an avenue, if you want to think of it like that, where they can sneak underneath that there. So it all depends on these bigger systems that are out there. And that was what happened in Harvey, is we had those big highs blocking to the north, east, and west. And so here, it just couldn't go anywhere, right? Yeah. And they didn't move. And so it just did its thing for 4 days, and it just sat there.
Just sat there.
Oh
right. That's the thing. They don't have any steering mechanism. So they can't say, oh, I'm going to go here for 12 hours and then I'm going to steer this way. It's where's the jet stream? Does this high block it that way? That's the one this weekend that's coming in. Even though it's going to be sloppy today, tomorrow, by Saturday, we'll see another high slide in, and it'll take it and go whoop up into North Texas, and she's gone, and that's it. And then we'll be fine this weekend. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's the three-dimensional dynamics of it is what really got me into meteorology in the first part, because it's just there's so many moving parts to the atmosphere. Weather in particular and atmospheric dynamics are very three-dimensional. So like what happens way up here affects what's going on down to the surface. And that's something I really try to explain, I think is of real value to getting back to what Jenny's question was about, kids and how do you kind of make this appropriate for kids so that they're not necessarily scared and how they understand it. That's something I really like to do on television, is to help people understand the science of what's happening here. Because then, even if it's like, wow, we're really getting some, heavy rain in here, I feel like if you know about what's going on, it goes back to the thing, knowledge is power, right? It sort of lessens the scariness of it. You're like, all right, well, we've got to wait for this to just move out of the way, and then this can move out of the way, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, there's so much to it that I didn't realize. And during Harvey, I was pregnant with my third child, and he was due on August 28th, I believe, and he was born on the 15th. And after Harvey, and I realized everything that went into play to make Harvey what it was, I was so thankful. I was just like, I'm so glad you decided to come a little bit early, because that was a whole deal I was not even remotely prepared for at all.
Yeah, that would have been pretty wild. There were a lot of, we've talked to some of the folks over at Children's Hospital and the center and down at MD Anderson Cancer Center. And man, they had all kinds of logistical issues they were dealing with in terms of patients getting stuck and not getting here and being able to go this way. And it was a lot.
Yeah. My neighbor went into labor during Harvey, and I was like, we have a boat. Like, we were trying to figure out.
Sure. Yeah.
Just like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. You gotta just figure that out. That's how it works.
Well, thank you, Justin, so much for joining us. This has been awesome. And everyone, we will make sure to our listeners, all of those links and things that he mentioned, we will put in the show notes.
Yep.
And we'll make sure all of your Instagram handles and Twitter and everything like that are tagged. And you can always watch all of the weather content and resources and everything that they give you over with Justin and Frank at KPRC Channel 2. I have been a long time Channel 2 girl over here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's click2houston.com. You go there and search button will put you anywhere you need to. Additionally, I'll say this too for all your listeners. If you or your kids or anyone in your family has specific weather questions, send them to me. You can either message me on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can go to jstapleton@kprc.com. Shoot me a mess or shoot me a question, something that if one of the kids has brought it up and you're like, I don't really know how to answer that, send it to me. I can probably find you the answer pretty quickly.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks
you so much, Justin.
Thanks, ladies. I really appreciate this. This was a fun talk.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Right. Yeah, hope y'all stay calm this weekekend. Yeah. Everything stays calm.
Yeah. It's literally today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. It'll just be hot and gross again, like it is every football.
Oh, joy!
Rest of summer.
Yeah, we'll be good.
Right. Thank you.
Bye, ladies.
You've been listening to the Cold Coffee Club, brought to you by Houston Moms. We wish you a fabulous week with your families and look forward to sharing many more cups of cold coffee with you.